too bad Michael's not here. He could be your guy.
Thank you, Zach. Appreciate that. I would have just
Every time I'll forget.
every damn time. Okay, so this safety topic is sun protection. Introduction. Overexposure to sunlight is widely accepted as the underlying cause for harmful effects on the skin, eyes, and immune system. These effects are mostly preventable because overexposure to sunlight is mostly avoidable. Having tanned or naturally dark skin does not eliminate the need for protection against the sun's rays, but be especially careful if you have numerous, irregular, or large moles, freckles, or fair skin. Clara, would you read that, please? Risks of overexposure.
Overexposure to sun can cause several different types of damage, from sunburn to eye damage to skin cancer. Most of the skin damage associated with aging is bristles, sagging, leathering, and discoloration of sunlight.
All right, Tyler, sunburn symptoms.
Sunburn symptoms: red, warm, and tender skin, blistering, and swollen skin.
Keep going.
Eye damage symptoms: red, dry, and painful eyes, gritty feeling in the eyes, possible cataracts and macular degeneration.
Evan,
Skin cancer symptoms. Skin cancers often take the following forms: pale, wax-like, curly nodules, red, scaly, sharply outlined patches, sores that don't heal, small mole-like growths. Periodically check for the symptoms of skin cancer. Usually, if you catch it early, it can be cured.
Ryan Orozco.
Prevent sun damage. Use sunscreen in every kind of weather and climate. Sunlight reflects off snow, ice, sand, and water, intensifying the rays and possibly damage. Reapply sunscreen every 2 hours or after swimming or excessive sweating. Don't use sunscreen past its expiration date. Wear wide-brimmed hats, long-sleeve shirts, pants, and sunglasses. Ask your doctor or pharmacist for more information about the medications you are taking. Some medications can increase your skin's sensitivity to the sun. Seek out shade if you can.
Zach, go ahead. I'll read the conclusion. Overexposure to sun can have terrible consequences. But as long as you use sunscreen, wear the proper clothing, and follow the other tips listed, you will be able to avoid sunburn, skin cancer, and eye damage. Anybody have any questions or comments or anything about that?
Everybody swimming on a job site.
Swimming on the job site? What's that now?
It said if you go swimming or if you're sweating, then you should be fine.
Yeah, well, swimming on the job site. You're going to see a video today of a job that's right on the ocean. And if I was swimming this job, I would probably be taking afternoon dips or lunchtime dips if it was okay. So, yes.
I saw some of the guys wearing like wide brim hats and the hard hats over them. Is it fine to do that safety wise? Or like not like that?
As long as your hard hat, they float on your head, right? The adjustable band. As long as it floats on your hat, that's all you need. There's no chin straps on hard hats. I mean, they maybe make them, but I've never seen them.
Should I wear a wide brim hat to the thing on Saturday?
You should always wear a brimmed hat. You should can and lose the ball hat. So should you, and so should you, and so should you, if you're in the sun all day long. It's okay. I have skin cancer, multiple skin cancers. I've had guys cut out here, squamous cell carcinoma here. I think one here. It's a lifetime of sun damage before I knew any better. A lifetime going to the beach as a kid, Santa Monica, getting sunburned and burned. My beach was my parents, my dad just loved the beach, and I had zinc oxide on my nose like my whole life. I was just constantly sunburned, and then I was a sea urchin, an abalone diver, and then a sea urchin diver, and I was like out, on a boat, in the sun, just getting sun. And I was a carpenter, and I built things, and just way too much sun, and not I didn't pay attention to sunscreen. I didn't pay attention to sunscreen, to the need for sunscreen, which, which really helps. And by the way, the only sunscreen that's going to really do you any good is the stuff with metal in it. Stuff with metal in it. If it has titanium or zinc oxide or some kind of metal, then it's going to be a block against the sun. It's going to reflect the sun. All that other stuff. So use a good sunscreen. Use a lot of it. Even if you have darker colored skin, the sun is still damaging your skin. If you have more pigment in your skin, you are damaged less, but you still get damaged. So protect yourself from the sun. Wear brimmed hats. They protect the back of your neck. They really protect your face. I have a tilly that I wear everywhere. Sometimes I wear a ball cap if it's windy as hell because I hate the chin thing on my tilly hat. So that's pure ego, man. And then to finish this soliloquy, because I'm fair skinned and Germanic, Teutonic, and I have genetically fair skin, and I'm prone to stuff like this, and I didn't take care of myself, and now I have these skin things that I have to deal with. I did Levulan PDT about 5 years ago, and I'm sure none of you know what that is, but what it is if you have skin like mine, you go to the skin doctor, and they clean your face with acetone, methyl ethyl ketone. She's like, that smells like acetone. She goes, this methyl ethyl ketone, that's acetone. Yeah, they clean your face with that, and then they break this thing and they rub this stuff all over your face, right? When you do it to your face, you did it to my face. This PDT, Levulan PDT, and then you wait 1 hour, and then they take you into this room. And they sit you in a stool and they roll up this light thing. It's curved. It's like these blue lights, right? And this thing, and they roll it up so it's all the way around you. And they give you a little handheld fan. And then they turn on the fan for you and turn on the blue lights for 1,000 seconds, which is 16 minutes of change. 16 minutes and some seconds. So 1,000 seconds with this fan. Without the fan, your face would just like incinerate and turn into charcoal. Not really, but it feels that way. So the exposure to this intense blue light, and then that's done. And then we put this cream on your face, this soothing Aquaphor cream, and then they send you home, right? And you kind of go home with a bad sunburn, all over. And then and you're very sensitive to light. You got to stay out of the light. And then the next day you got a really bad sunburn, and your skin is super sensitive to light. Like I walked through a band of light, and I felt like somebody just took a blowtorch in my face. Unbelievable. Even like this, it's like, oh, it just burns your skin. The third day, wake up. Basically, I woke up with my face stuck to the pillow. And it was like Elephant Man, dude. It was like just scabs and bleeding places. So what the Levulan PDT does is it goes in there with your epidermis, with that first and second layer of your skin, and actually down in the third layer, and it brings out any pre-cancers you might have in your skin. It brings them to the surface. Your skin deals with them. So by the 8th day, all that stuff is gone, and you have like baby nice skin for about 2 years. Don't have to do that. You don't want to have to do that, right? It's not fun. It sucks. Unless you like to be the Elephant Man for 8 days. Hey, you made it, Daniel, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Glad you made it, Daniel.
In relation to what Rodney was talking about, the site that we're going to on Saturday is full sun exposure.
Yeah, full sun,
So
full sun.
hat, neck protection, bring water. Be prepared. Yeah, long sleeves are helpful.
Hey, did Miguel? Did you make it? No. Okay. Let me. You can. If any of you guys at Zoom, home at Zoom, if you see Miguel come in, somebody chime up and say, "Hey, Miguel's here." All right, because I'm sure he's coming. And Christian, did you make it? No. Okay. So yeah. So sunburn's not good for you. It's cumulative, right? The sun damaged this. And Claire, you're beautiful, fair skin. Don't ever not wear a hat in the sun, please, and sunscreen. Just take care of your skin, man. You guys, you'll all Your skin will not like it if you don't take good care of yourself. Take sun-wise, because the sun is not your friend. Oh, yeah, the sun damages skin. So please be careful, because a lot of this work that we do in construction is outside. Not all of it, but a lot of it. A lot of it's outside. So floor framing. Here we are at floor framing. No water framing. Okay. Let's see, what do I want to do? Modules. Okay, modules. Let's see. So we're going to be halfway through. At the end of this thing, this is hump day. You're right, hump week, right?
Yeah, then
This is it, man. We are over big hump at 8 weeks. And now we're starting to coast after tonight. We're still climbing. Tonight, we're going to be going down to the finish line. And so I want to do this thing with you guys, but I also want to get you to, I want to get you out to my shop. I'm still planning to do that. I've cleared it with the guys that own my business now. That's fine with them. And I just gotta put my head together with Jim, and because, make sure I can pull you guys out, because we won't be covering anything really. It'll be a fun trip. You'll see some bunch of stuff about construction, more the cabinet making millwork end of construction. But I guarantee you, you'll like it. We'll have a good time. It'll be a good field trip. So let's just look at this. Let's just look at this. Wait, that's not gonna work. There's nothing in there. How's that gonna work? It's not, is it? Okay, so I'm gonna share a screen with y'all. I'm gonna share a screen with y'all, and everyone at home will see it here. Follow along. Thank you. Getting lights. Thank you in advance. Getting lights. Is that on? Yeah. Okay, what are we on? We're on 10, right? Floor framing. There's a lot in there, man. Gosh, there's a lot in there. A lot in floor framing. Here's our learning objectives. We're gonna be able to explain the difference between platform, balloon, and post and beam framing, 3 types of framing. Identify the main parts of a platform frame. Lay out and install sills on a foundation wall. Describe how layouts are made on a header joist. Explain the correct procedure to follow when correcting problems with floor frames. Identify the parts of a floor truss. Describe materials used for subflooring. Estimate materials, sizes and amounts required to construct a specific floor frame. Some technical terms you'll come across in this chapter. And so if you haven't figured it out now, and I suspect you have figured it out, this class is about this book. The test is about this book. Do you have a question, Dave?
Well, on that page, they do mention that balloon framing is no longer used in new construction.
Yeah.
But
So-
did I understand you correctly in saying that you always use balloon framing for gable roofing?
Gable end walls, not gable roofing, but gable end walls.
Gable.
Yeah. And any in single story, any framer worth of salt will frame the gable end wall with balloon framing. If you see a guy doing platform framing, you go, whoa, wait a second. That creates a hinge point at your plate line. Yeah, and that's just old fashioned framer stuff. Yeah, it's probably okay, with the sheet, they sheet the whole thing now. That as long as you're not sheeting to your 8-foot plate and then sheeting above that, because you still got the same damn hinge point. If somehow you sheet or shear and / sheet over that plate to plate connection, bottom plate to top plate connection on your gable end wall, then you get rid of that hinging effect. But otherwise, it's the way to go. But yeah, band joist, I know what a band joist is, blocking, block all that much, you know, bridging, cantilevered, cords, cross bridging, crown, deflection, girders, hangers, headers, herringbone bridging. Nobody does that anymore, ever, anywhere. High joists, joists, ledgers, mud sills, platform framing, post anchors, post and beam framing, which is really fun and cool. Ribbon, rough flooring, sill plate, sill silver, solid bridging. You know what span is, what a steel post is, a stirrup, subflooring, tail joist, trimmer, underpinning, webs, and white flange. So when building, foundation's completed, and the concrete's set up, you can start the floor for you. Framing the floor is often completed when the foundation is backfilled. So we're talking about, what are we not talking about foundation-wise? Anybody? Do you need to frame the floor on a slab? No, the floor is done. There is no floor framing on a slab, right? You're going to go right to wall framing when you have a slab. Then you will get to floor framing. If it's a single story, that's going to be ceiling, attic, floor. But if it's a second story, then you will be into floor framing, even with slab on grade, just not first floor, right?
You
Like
still
to-
do a subfloor on the slab?
No,
No.
you do not. Now, that's a really good question, because no, there is no subfloor per se on a slab. But it depends on what you plan on doing for finished floor on the slab. So for instance, if you want a wood floor on your slab, there's a good chance you'll use an engineered floor, a glue down floor, a floating floor. But if you want to sand in place, 3/4 by 2 1/4 T&G red oak classic hardwood floor, you're going to take this into account too when you do the plans and do the building and do the framing and everything else. But you're going to put down 3/4 sleepers. You're going to blow them down with powder actuated tools, right? Shoot them right to the floor, and you're going to nail to the sleepers. The way we used to do hardwood floors on slabs is we would bed redwood, like 4x and 3x on 16 or 2-foot centers right in the wet concrete. You go to some early 1900s, all the way into the 20s and even into the 30s. Nice houses. They bedded wood into the concrete. So they had because they knew they were going to have hardwood floor throughout. And the places they knew they were going to have hardwood floor. On the other hand, backfilling may be done before the floor frame is installed. Yes, absolutely. This often has two advantages. Makes delivery of lumber easier. It absolutely does. Carpenter must make sure the foundation wall is adequately braced against damage or cave-in, blah, blah, blah. 1-story, 2-story factors include earthquakes may be the greatest hazard. Snow loads, we don't have to talk about those now, do we? So now here's platform framing. A frame of joist provides the support for the walls of the first level of the building. Ceiling joist or floor joist for the second level rest on the top plate. So let's see, does this talk? Okay, so this is the figure that is talked about in platform framing. So we'll get to that. Did I miss something? Yeah, I'm sorry, I did. So types of framing, 3 types. Platform framing, also called Western framing. Balloon framing, which is used in new construction, no longer used in new construction, but carpenters who remodel or repair should know about it. And I just, if you heard that that back and forth with David and I insist that framers do balloon frame gable end walls. A lot easier. And then post and beam framing, also called plank and beam. It's different from the other two. It's heavy structural members are at least 4 inches thick. Kind of construction covered in chapter 25 is post and beam. So I don't think they even touch upon it in here. That's where in post and beam construction, you have a post larger, 4x and larger. And then you have, that's a lot of let-in joists, dovetail joists, half-lap joists, pin and peg joints. The whole structure on the corner of Carrillo and Bath Streets, where Rusty's is, which would be the northwest corner, where Rusty's Pizza is. That house is built with no nail, that structure, a two-story structure is built with no nails. That's post and beam. It's an actual half timbered, built with no nails, mortise and tenon joints. It's all pegs. It's really killer. The guy that built it was Sugar Lindwall. He had the boat works here, Lindwall Boat Works here at our harbor forever. He was a extraordinary boat builder. Forgotten more than most people will ever know.
Hey, Rodney,
Yes.
why do you say that they don't use herringbone bridging?
Oh, you never see it. They're just, herringbone bridging is, it's a staggered bridging, in joist bay, floor joist or ceiling joist. We don't use it anymore because there's more efficient ways to go. And we pretty much use TGIs. We're still using solid 2x members for floor joists, but more often than not, especially in new construction, it's truss joists.
There's a whole section of it in here that says it's called regular bridging.
Yeah, we don't do that around here. I won't see anybody do it. It's not necessary. Blocking is a lot easier to do.
Well, they say it's just like an X of
Yeah.
1x3 or 2x2
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the corners.
Oh, just in the corners? We'll see when we get to
So
it.
something like that. Or
Okay.
between the joists.
Yeah, but let's take a look at it. You don't see it anywhere anymore. So here's platform framing, right? So you build a wall at a time on top of your joist, and we'll go through the what consists of floor joist system in terms of framing, and we don't use lead-in braces anymore. Those are not, we don't use those anymore at all. We use steel straps and wall framing. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but it's all mixed together really. In framing, you don't have floor framers and wall framers and roof framers. You have framers, and you frame everything. And in wall framing, besides knocking together 2x4s and single bottom plates and double top plates, you when your frame is erected, before you sheet it, shear it, put rafters on it, or put any kind of ceiling joist on it, you need to plumb and line the walls. So I don't know if that probably gets in that in a wall framing, but when the walls are plumbed and lined, then they're braced up, and then the top plate connects them all together. But on interior walls, we don't use any lead-in bracing. We don't use any lead-in bracing on exterior walls either. Mostly you'll see straps for diagonals, but generally we don't even use diagonals because we shear and sheet the exterior now. Virtually all our buildings are sheeted on the outside, which gives them a fair amount of shear. As you can picture, I know nobody at home can see this, but picture studs standing up like this. They could collapse, but with sheet goods nailed across them, they can't collapse. They're completely sheared. And that's what the lead-in bracing used to do. Because when we used to frame, let's say with stucco, we would do a wall like this with lead-in bracing and then lath, which was tar paper and chicken wire, and then stucco. So there was no shear whatsoever, except for the lead-in cross brace, which did provide shear. It just, we want more shear now because we're way more earthquake conscious. Yes.
Have you heard of people sheeting the ceiling besides just drywall, but actually putting like plywood up?
Nope.
to Screw into?
Nope. Have you?
Yeah, I've done it before. That's what I was asking. If it was,
Why?
if you've heard of anybody else.
Is there any reason? But what was the reason?
More places to screw into that
Oh.
things, but
Oh, okay. Yeah, that would certainly
and
be a reason to do it.
noise dampening.
That would be a reason to do it too. In some respect, yeah, you will get some noise dampening just by adding another layer of material. But a lot of noise is vibration and it travels right through your screw heads. But still an extra layer, you're gonna get some noise dampening regardless. But where the heck was I? Platform framing. So post and beam we're probably not going to talk about. We're going to talk about platform and barely boom. So okay, there's a platform frame wall. And we'll get into the framing members as you get into wall framing, but let's try to keep it to floors now. Outside walls are chair bridges support rafters, each floor separately framed. Platform framing is satisfactory for both one-story and multi-story structures. Settlement due to lumber shrinkage occurs in an uneven and uniform manner throughout the structure. Okay, that's good. First floor platform of a platform frame on figure 10. Okay. So that's pretty typical with a sill, a pressure treated mud sill. Sill plate, PTM, pressure treated mud sill laying on a concrete foundation. And then rim joist, the joist hung inside that rim joist. And then they build a plate and walls on top of that. First floor sill is anchored to the foundation. So that sill is bolted to the foundation with anchor bolts, which you talked about and we heard about in your foundation that you want to test on, right? Anchor bolts around here or what? 5/8 by 10 galvanized anchor bolts. Exactly correct. 5/8 by 10. So here's an exterior wall. There's an exterior wall and a girder. It looks like with a girder pocket. So maybe that's just hung, notched out. I can't tell. Here's an exterior wall with a double plate, band joist. That's the second floor right there. Okay, that's second floor. And here's another second floor with fire stops. Oh, that's midspan right there. A bearing partition. You got a fire stop on top of the plate. So yeah, fire stops. That's in walls. But anything over 10 feet, you have to fire stop it. And when you're ceiling joists, which is what these are right here, ceiling joists, when they pass over a bearing partition, they need to be blocked in between. It's called fire stop or solid bridging, but I call it blocking. And there's a band joist. That's on the outside. That's cool. Okay, what else we got here? Platform framing details, sill sealer, second floor framing similar to the first. What's that? Did I miss something there? Usually the first floor platform rests on a sill. Right there. There's the sill. This is a wood member that's attached by bolts or other metal fasteners embedded in the foundation. The anchor bolts we talked about. The platform rests on an underpinning. That would be the foundation wall, the poured foundation wall. And this place looks like maybe a block wall that comes up out of the ground, out of a foundation. Hard to say. Can't see it all. This is a wall made of short studs. Okay, so sometimes the platform rests on an underpinning. This is a wall made of short studs that extends above a low foundation. That's called a cripple wall. It's usually used on a house that is to have a full basement. Sometimes an underpinning is called, fire stopping can be used to spread prevent the spread of a fire. Fire stopping is needed to be built into the floor frame at the second level. Absolutely. It prevents the spread of fire in horizontal directions. It also serves as a solid bridging, holding the joist in a plumb position. So it keeps your joists from rolling over if they're blocked in between. But I'm not going to jump there yet. So what time is it? Okay, we're going to finish this page and take a break. Referring to the illustrations, note that the carpenter usually places a strip of insulation called a sill sealer. Okay, so in balloon framing, okay, so let's just jump to this sill sealer. So see sill sealer there on top of that concrete stem wall, which is a foundation wall, right there. Some sill sealer, piece of insulation or something, even though it's pressure treated mud sill, to keep it off of the bare concrete. The wood off the concrete, put a sill sealer underneath. It's a good idea. And there's 3 ways that you can do your sheeting as it interfaces with your floor joist system. We're never going to see this around here. Typically a Roman face brick common bond letting the footing. I haven't seen one yet in these right here parts, but we do this a lot. Not my favorite at all. Matter of fact, my least favorite. This is my favorite right here. Now, some people do this where they set the bottom 2x6 mud sill all the way flush with the foundation. And then they run the sheeting out over the foundation. I don't mind that so much at all, actually. But I like this better, it's cleaner. Because this is set up really well for plaster. You get 7/8 of an inch of plaster on top of that with a weep screed and the plaster. And then the plaster, the lath laps that joint, which is the one thing I kind of like about hanging the sheeting, hanging the sill flush with the foundation wall and the sheeting over it, is to drop the sheeting down slightly so it bridges that joint. Because the last thing I want to do is get anything from the exterior underneath that sill. Just something to think about when you get down to there.
Why is the middle one your least favorite?
Because it leaves all this. I like to see the sheeting go all the way down. I think it shears the whole thing.
Didn't your James say the sheeting like wicks water from the outside thing if you do it all the way over?
It can wick water if you don't do it right, if you don't seal the bottom of it. It can wick water. But how much water is it going to wick? In the first place, it's got to have water. Water's got to be in proximity to it to wick water, right? So if you're 6 inches off the deck, that's your minimum, 6 inches off the deck, and that's how far your piece of plywood is. You should not get water any closer than 6 inches. And water 6 inches away isn't going to wick up your wall. Now, if you get water all the way, and then the pull and it floods up and it comes over that plywood, then yeah. If it gets to the edge of the plywood and it's not sealed, then it can certainly wick water. So this is a better way, this way right here, to capture it than hanging it out. But this is the way I prefer to do it. And in balloon framing, the studs are continuous. So I'll show you after the break. I'll just draw something for everybody in case anybody's not seeing in their mind's eye what a gable-end balloon frame looks like. I'll do that really quickly, and we'll have that. And so let's come back for girders and beams at let's come back at 7:10. We're gonna break until 7:10, gang. 7:10. I'm gonna stop the shaft. That shaft. Come on back. Okay, hey, welcome back. Welcome back, everyone.
I don't know.
So,
I don't know.
Did Jim tell you guys to read chapter 10? Jim tell you guys to read chapter 10? Hey, back to class. Yeah, yeah, over there too? Yes, yes. Jim tell you to read chapter 10? Okay, raise your hand if you read chapter 10. I'm impressed. Now the rest of you layabouts need to read chapter 10. Because we're gonna get to we will not get to the whole thing. I'm gonna try to touch on some stuff. And then I'm gonna go back into the online books because they got some flashcards and kind of some stuff that we can do that maybe will help out a little bit. Then I want to show you, then we'll take a break and I want to show you some videos of a cool job spraying down at the beach that I did last year. I didn't do it, but I framed it or I filmed it. I filmed it. So balloon framing. Balloon framing. Leave it. It's not refocusing. I never stopped. Zach, you didn't tell me to stop recording.
Everybody's just gonna have to watch the break.
Zach. So anyway, so just, and you guys are all supposed to read the book too, right? You're supposed to be reading chapter 10. So hopefully some of you did, some of you didn't, but you will have to eventually read it because that's where your questions are going to be. But in platform framing, you'd build a single bottom plate, double top plate. You have end studs and corners. If this were the end of a wall and a corner, there's 3 different corners that we talk about in framing. Then studs, 16 centers is probably where they're going to be, and maybe blocking, maybe not. And then if you were building a second story, you'd build another whole joist system above it and then plate it and then start building walls. That's platform framing. And in a gable end wall, platform framing would be to build an 8-foot plate that's connected everywhere else and then build a gable end wall with a plate and studs, which would all be crippled studs. So what that does is it creates a hinge point between the 2 plates. And it's a lot easier and better just to snap out on your floor or slab and gable end. And frame it like that. And that would be balloon framing. And then there's a variety of ways to hang ceiling joists. You can run a ribbon and put hangers to hang your joist. You can, I'm not going to even go into it. It's in the book. There's a variety of ways to do it, but I think the best way is to hang a ribbon. So if it's side view, right, of a stud. One of these studs as it continues on up. Ledger, which is consistent with your ceiling joists, and then your ceiling joists are hung with hangers, U26 hangers. That'd be your ceiling. I hope that made sense. But that's the only thing you want to do a balloon frame in is gable wall. So when we do it anymore, we don't have those long links anymore. We don't use those anymore. So let's go back to the book. I'm gonna drop this screen again. We are recording. We're going to show the screen. Girders and beams, yes, yes. Come on, does it come up? Okay. So LVL, who knows what that means?
Laminated veneer lumber.
Exactly correct. Laminated veneer lumber. And LVL and glue lam beams, floor beams, are what's happening, and so are truss joists. You know, but really, you're going to go with whatever the plans call out. So it depends on the area that you live in, what the architects and engineers are specifying for where you live, and that's what you're going to follow, period. So joists are the horizontal members of the floor frame. They are also the horizontal members of the ceiling frame, but we're not there yet. So they rest on top of the foundation walls, girders, and the top plates of the second stories. Span is the distance between the walls. Usually the span is so great that additional support must be provided. Girders, called beams, rest on foundation walls, posts, or columns underneath the house, and they support the joist at their midpoint. Most joist spans have a mid-span beam to support it, so they can run long joists and not short joists. Girders may be solid timbers, built-up lumber, engineered lumber, or steel beams. Sometimes a load-bearing partition replaces a girder or beam. So underneath the house, you might have a grade beam, which is like a low foundation, like a trench dug with steel laid in it, full of concrete, a little bit higher than grade. And then on that, you'd have anchor bolts, then you would build a cripple wall. And that cripple wall would be a load, could be possibly be a load-bearing wall for a mid-span support of long joists. So LVL is really good because it's dimensionally stable, it's consistent in strength, and eliminates the labor of constructing a built-up beam, and it's available in spans, lengths to span most houses, so you can get it in some really long lengths. You can get it in, Jesus, 40 footers. Unbelievable. There's a good floor joist span table there's our, wow. Cool. Even though that's interesting, let's not get lost in that, right? Okay, here we go. So build-up girders can be made for 3 or 4 pieces of 2-inch lumber nailed together with 10D nails. Again, built-up girders do happen. You will see them. We do them right now, but you probably won't be making one unless the plans call out for it. And then it'll tell you how to do it. Nailed together with 10Ds in figure 7. So there's a girder made of 3 2x whatevers, nailed together with 10D nails. That should have a specific nailing pattern. And they sit into a beam pocket that was formed for it when the foundation wall was poured to receive that beam to support at least 4 inches of the end of that beam. Glue lams are, a bunch of wood pieces glued together in the factory. Steel beams, we do use steel beams here, actually quite a bit. Wide flange and narrow flange, but mostly wide flange I-beams or W-beams. Again, if your engineer calls for it, then you're going to put it in, and he's going to tell you how to make the connections. It's going to be a steel column supporting it, or it's going to be a wood column supporting it. If it's going to get Nelson studs attached to it, so you can bolt wood to it, so you can wrap it and get rid of the look of the steel, which generally we don't show the steel. A Nelson stud is a welded on threaded stud. Anchor usually 3/8, but they can come 1/2 inch or bigger. So you can, there are various lengths. So you can drill holes and put a piece of wood, bolt a piece of wood, but you can nail other things too. I just skip one. Steel beams, posts and columns. So just for instance, the size of steel beams depend on the load. 1010 shows how the load's calculated. Where's 1010? Let's see. Is 1010? Nope, 10.8. There's 1010. This diagram shows the method of figuring loads for the frame of a 2-story home. So it measures for instance, the roof. For a dead load, it's the weight of the wood shingles, and they equal 10 pounds a square foot. So that's not that tough to figure out. And to figure for the live load, you've got to figure for requirements for wind and snow, usually 30 pounds a square foot. And then you got to get beams and lumber engineered to meet those requirements. But again, don't get too far ahead of yourself, because almost all that stuff that you're gonna, if you have to do it, it's gonna be spelled out for you by the engineer and or the architect. And you just gotta follow directions. So for example, if the total evenly distributed load on the beam is 15,000 pounds and the span between supports is 16 feet, then the table will tell you that W8 by 18, that's a 8-inch flange by 18-foot deep W beam should be used. So the span tables will tell you what you need. So a lot of engineering you can figure yourself with span tables. Personally, I like to let the engineers do it, but I'm willing to engineer some stuff myself too. Especially over-engineer it. Posts and columns. For girder and beam support, steel posts are most popular, and I don't know. We use them a fair amount, but we use a lot of wood. We could have used steel columns, steel posts in the shade structure too. For example, a 6x6 post is suitable for girders 6 inches wide. For a girder 8 inches wide, a 6x8 or an 8x8 post should be used.
Would they rust though?
No,
No.
no, they have to be galvanized and painted. They have to be treated like they're going to be outside. And then no, they wouldn't rust. It could rust if you get through the coating, protective coating.
Right.
It could rust. Where wood won't, but wood rots. Adequate footings must be provided for girders, girder posts and columns. Wood posts should be supported on footings that extend above the floor level as shown in figure 12. Okay. Let's see that one.
Steel's probably more expensive, huh?
No,
No? Oh, that's surprising.
but what makes them more expensive is the welding of the flanges. The welding and the flanges make the steel posts more expensive, but the wood's now more expensive than the steel.
Oh,
The actual wood.
that's crazy.
No. Where's 1010? Okay, so that's 1011, 1012. All right. Footings for columns must extend above the floor level. Interesting. Okay. Footings for columns must extend. Okay. Pedestal above floor post. That's kind of like we're going to do at the over at City College in the shade structure. Only it's a little different base, but it does. It'll keep the wood from sitting on the bare concrete. Posts and columns. Headers and girders. So here's a header table. For supporting multiple floors, what the spans are. You can do a built-up post nailing 3 2x6s together, but then why would you if you can go to the board store and buy a 6x6 unless you want to use some material that you just got to get rid of. There's some various structural steel shapes. There's that table for how you figure live and dead loads. But again, it's not likely you're going to be figuring this anytime soon. There's going to be people to figure this out for you until you get way more experienced. And then you can figure it out for yourselves. But it's nice to try to figure out what's going on. So that when you're told what to do, at least you know, so you can say, hey, why aren't we using a W821 on that? Because it looks to me like the span on that for 10 foot is 29.1, and you're using a, really? I thought you were just a laborer. Dude, you're promoted. Okay. Framing over, okay, so framing over girders and beams. So when you have a lap, right, so right here, you've got these joists lapping. They lap together and they usually lap 2 feet each way, and they want to lap over something, a girder or a midspan, something to that supports them where they lap. Not midspan, but you need something to support the lap. They can't just have a lap hanging out in space. Wow. That's a lot of bra. Bless it. Okay, so in this guy here, the joists right here are cut out and they're pocketed and they're let in for this triple girder. And then they hang on this ledger. So they hang up here and then they hang down on this ledger. That's a pretty cool way to do it. That's old style carpentry there. The joist should be supported with hangers or stirrups, which we usually do, and that's in 10-16, where's 16? 17, where's 16? 14, okay, so there's a typical joist hanger. That looks like a 2x6 to me, which is your very common floor joist as well as ceiling joist. And so you'd use a U26 hanger. Simpson, they're relatively cheap. They nail with Tico nails. And this little thing right here, right there, see that thing? That's a tab that when you get your joist in there, you can take your hammer and hit that tab and hit the tab on the other side and it'll drive in the steel. This little steel, to come to a point there, it'll drive it in and it'll grab your joist while you nail it off. So it doesn't bounce around. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's a pretty cool deal, actually. So after the girders and beams are in place, you're gonna attach the sill of the foundation wall, and that you do with crank it down with a ratcheting wrench or crescent wrench.
Are the Tico nails usually a standard size?
Yeah, they are. They're all one size, a 1/2 inch or 5 inch, because they're all going through that thin galvanized metal. So yes, I think Tico nails are all one size. So sill construction, next to attach the sill, attach the sill, okay. So these guys are butted. And then that's toenailed on both sides. And then they are gusseted. I don't know what they're calling that. And a short scab of 2-inch material. The joists are tied together with a scab or cross tie. Huh. So there's the scab. Wow, that's one way to do it. They rest on a ledger. So this is old style framing. You're not going to see this around here. You might see this in an old house, but you're not going to see this around here. You're just not going to see it. So who knows what IRC is? It's the International Residential Code. That's what it is. International Residential Code, 7 inches deep, right? And then we need 3 inches above because of our plate, and we got to get a bolt and nut on it. We want some room to play with. So that's where our 10-inch comes. 7 inches of embedment, right? That's the thing you got to know. 7 inches is how far it's got to be embedded. And they can't be, anchor bolts cannot be any further than 6 feet apart. And they can't be any further away than 12 inches from any corner. Or window, no, any corner. 12 inches of the end of the sill or corner. And each sill board must contain at least 2 anchor bolts, okay. Termite shields, we don't do termite shields. Well, let's find out. termites are a problem, and they are. Special shields must be installed. Some termites live underground and come to the surface to feed on wood. They may enter through cracks in masonry or build earthen tubes on the sides of masonry walls to reach the wood. We got a ton of termites in our storage area, that next building right next door. The wood sill should be at least 8 inches above the ground. Also, a protective metal shield should extend out over the foundation wall, as shown in figure 1019. It should be not less than 26 gauge thick steel. So there's a termite shield. That's that metal shield. So I guess it keeps the termites from climbing up your foundation walls and then getting onto the sill. They somehow hit that metal and go, oh shit, guys, there's metal up here. We can't go any further. I don't know why it does that. I've never seen one of those either.
Exactly, have massive brains.
No, they have a hive brain, right? Canada and Alaska are considered to be region 4, Hawaii and Puerto Rico region 1. In areas where termite damage is great, additional measures should be taken. Soil around the foundation and the structure can be treated. That's one of the reasons why wood to soil contact is no, 18 inches above, right? Soil underneath your raised foundation, bottom of your floor joist, 18 inches minimum crawl space. But it's for crawl space, but it's also to keep creepy crawlers from getting on the wood. Keep it 18 inches away. Installing sills, not in the States. What's this?
If you have termites and like when you're like looking at like say like a piece of wood that has termites, what would you do?
You have to excise it, pretty much, because the problem with termite. So if you discover you have termites, two things need to happen. One is you need to kill the termites, or let them live, but eventually they will get killed if you sell your house, or at some point you'll have to tent your house and kill them because you'll get tired of it, like I did. I did mine about 10 years ago. But after, and I have my house for probably 20 years then. But you have to excise the termite damage number when you see it, right? You want to chase it because when you kill the termites, then that problem's gone. But the termite damaged wood encourages rot. It's broken down the cells of the wood, and it's given an area for any moisture to get into. And the minute any moisture can get into that wood, it's going to start to rot. And rot's like cancer, it's pervasive. You need to excise it. So ideally, you're going to cut away all the termite damaged wood. And once the termites are gone, whatever wood you can't cut away that's visible and it's too much trouble to cut away, then you're going to want to fill it with either Bondo or some epoxy wood house filler to fill in all those places where the termites have made inroads and opened up your solid wood where there's a place of rot could get. Termites. Wood termites. Laying out the joists. Well, the one thing you want to think about when you lay out your joists on your, they call this a header joist. I call it a doubler or a rim joist. The way our friend would call that a rim joist, but the joist, the rim joist lays on the outside of the sill plate and the joist hang off of that, right? So your joist is going to sit on the sill plate and it's going to butt to your rim joist, which he isn't showing yet. Band joists are those joists that sit on the sill to which other floor joists are butted to and attached. They're called joist headers or rim joists. God, they actually know. The position of a intersecting framing member may be laid out by marking a single line and then placing an X to indicate the line of indicate the side of the line the joist is to be installed. So this is very typical. So if you want to put a joist on this band joist or rim joist, you would put a line which indicates where you want to line up the edge of the joist and then an X on the side that the joist goes. So that if you go along in your layout and you see an X, you did it wrong. You should cover all your X's. And when you're figuring joists, you want to take the lineal foot times 0.75 and add 1. That's the formula. You take the lineal foot, it's for 16 centers. If the centers are not 16, then this is not the formula. But the formula for 16 centers for joists is times 0.75, add 1. Okay? And that will give you the number of joists on 16 centers. So this is a pretty good look here. There's a sill plate, looks like it almost looks like he's hanging out past this decorative foundation wall. He's got something under the sill, but there's a rim joist, right? Rim joist or band joist. And then you see how he's held these joists back so that his sheeting can drop down and be captured by the sill plate. And then his stucco will go over all of that and probably lap right onto and put a weep screen right at the bottom of that like that. So it covers all. That's a nice way of doing it. And you see, when you hang joists, this guy is sitting 1.5 inches. It's actually sitting 2 inches on that 2x6. So that sill plate is 5.5 inches. It's a 1/2 inch off for sheeting, and then 1.5 inches back. So 2 inches back is where that sill hits. So there's still 3.5 inches of joist to the inside of the building, and that's what your joist sits on before it butts into that band joist. And there's no hangers for that because it's got a purchase. You don't have to hang it. You just need to nail it with 3 nails, 16 pennies, through your band or rim joist into the end of your joist. And that's what holds your joist. Hold your joist in place. And you've done the layout. You've gone along and measured for layout. Now remember, you're also, whenever you lay out 16 centers, there's a reason for 16 centers. Who knows the reason for 16 centers? Okay, so the reason for 16 centers is that it's been figured that that's a pretty good span, that 24 is too big, you get some deflection, and 12 is too tight, you don't need it. 16 is a good span, but 3/16 is 48, and that's what sheeting comes in 4x8s. So you want to lay out your joists so that you have your rim joist is completely covered, flushes with your floor, your subfloor, your 3/4 subfloor, and that 48 inches over is the center of your third joist over. And that the center 3 joists over that is right in the middle of that joist is 48, so that your plywood drops right on the center of a joist for nailing, and the next sheet of plywood drops right on the center of that joist. So you have nailing, right? So layout is really important. And if you start going crazy on this layout and go 4-foot centers, but don't take into account that first one, make sure it lays out right, then you're gonna have a little tiny ripper subfloor, which is not the end of the world, but ideally you want to lay out so that you can drop on a subfloor, right? Drop on, drop on, drop on. Because in this case, the way typically we frame, we do the floor joists, sheet the whole thing, drop the sill plate on top of the sheeting and go from there. The joist lap over the center girder, space in the first joist is different. Okay. Some carpenters set back the stringer and headers, leaving a ledge on the sill, which is same thickness as the sheeting, which is what happened here. This is called trimmers. So yeah, this is a good one. Select straight lumber for the band joist and lay out standard spacing along its entire length. Figure 27. Let's look at 27 here. Okay, so here's 27. So here's layout, right? And you're gonna lay out for your stairwell. It's gonna go down to the basement. You're gonna put your doublers in there, or what's called a trimmer, king stud and a trimmer, or in this case, a king, I don't know if they call that a king joist or not, but it's a trimmer joist. These guys are gonna get tailed because this is an opening that's gonna get tailed, it's gonna be cut. But you don't cut them when you lay it out. Typically, just do the layout, and then when your floor is done, then you go ahead and lay out, cut your openings, and run your perpendicular joists, your header joists. Laying out a band joist with joist positions. In step 1, a rod is used to mark regular spacing. In step 2, a double and trimmer joist position have been added. Okay. I know some of this is relatively complex, and framing is not real simple. Some parts of it are relatively simple, but it's generally kind of a complex thing to do to understand all the different aspects of framing. We're going to try to keep it relatively simple and not overwhelm you with information, but there is a heck of a lot of information in there. Just suffice to say, you can see that's a partition above the floor. That would be the place that your engineered plans should have you putting a girder to support that under the floor. And then here's your double headers for when you make openings, right? You do double trimmer either side. So you do all that layout in your joist to joist. And then when it's done, then you come in and lay out, snap out, cut out. You cut 3 inches back and 3 inches back. That's 6 inches over your opening, because you're going to cut that out, and then you're going to nail on a double header. You're going to nail that one onto the ends of the joist you cut and in there too. And then you're going to nail another one onto that, and you're going to nail that way. And the same thing over there. And that's going to support. That's what's called heading off. So that opening in the floor is the same that you would do in a ceiling, and it's the same that you would do in a roof. So when you make openings in roofs, ceilings, and floors that have rafters and joists, you can make cutouts right in the middle of them, but you've got to head them off. And that's how you head them off. You cut them over, you use double headers that are nailed through the remaining full-length joists, and then the tail joists, you nail your header joist into the end of your tail joists, and then you nail another one into the end, and you also nail it through your continuous joist. That's how you do holes in those guys. Nailing joists. Now, who knows what those are? Those are TGIs, so which means truss joist eyes. They look like an eye. They're shaped like an eye. They're made from their center cord is made from LVL, or like an OSB type thing. It's got fiberglass strands and glue. Small pieces of wood all pressed together under a lot of pressure. So special nailing, what does this say about special nailing? Eye joists, okay, special techniques must be used to fasten eye joists to other frame components. Eye joists are often attached to joist headers and girders with steel hangers. Yeah, that's true. There are special hangers that hang eye joists, are made to hang eye joists, and your eye joists are going to be, they're going to be 150 or 250s. So they're going to be 1.5 or 2.5. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's it. Let's see. To reduce splitting, nail joists, bearing points with 218 nails, no closer than each other. Okay. Yeah, you can read all this by yourself without me. Okay, so here's a typical header, right? Hangs over the joist. It's going to hang out of the rim joist. And then there's places for that clip. I tell you, you can just hit it with your hammer and it'll hold it right there. There's one of those on either side. Same thing down here. Will hold your joist. Those little things right there are built into the hangers. So you just drop a joist in and smack it with a hammer and it will hold your joist before you need to put any nails in it. And then you slide in your eye joist, push it down firmly so it flushes. It's got to flush, right? Got a seat in the hanger. blocking panels, squash blocks. What is this? Squash blocks? Yeah, well, the thing about a truss joist floor, an I-joist floor, is it's a sturdy floor, and they make a quiet floor. And if you install them right, and if you glue down and use a screw nail on your floor sheeting, then you won't have a squeaky floor. And there is nothing worse than a squeaky floor because they're really hard to fix. But all subfloors need to go down with construction adhesive, PL 400 or equal. All floor construction subfloors need to go down with adhesive. And either a ring shank nail, ring shank, which has rings on its shank, kind of like a screw nail. So it really has a grab and it has stuff going for it because nails, wood moves all the time. It's a live thing, and it likes to push out nails. Wood likes to push out nails. And if you have glued down your floor and used a ring shank or a screw nail, it's not likely to squeak or move that nail around. You need to do everything you can to make a really solid tight floor. Because squeaky floors are the worst. Especially when when they show up after the floor finishes are down, and then they're really hard to fix. They're hard to fix anyway. So working with I-joists, they're unstable until they're braced properly. So don't walk on them until they're braced. Don't stack materials on them. Subflooring must be completely attached to each joist before additional loading. Nail all blocking hangers and rim boards to the ends. Temporarily brace them. Add 1x4 struts from the braced area across the tops. Nah, forget that. When the joists are cantilevers, struts must be attached at both the top and bottom flanges. Yes, okay, because they do make struts. They make metal struts that attach and nail when they're cantilevered, like a bridge blocking. See if they get into that. I don't think they do. Installing solid wood joists. Same thing, only easier, but not as sturdy. Some carpenters lay a bead of caulk along the joint formed by the band joint and the sill to keep out the air and dust. Sill sealer serves the same thing. It's a good idea. Really good idea. So here's bridging. Bridging may be eliminated if the joists are properly secured at the ends and subflooring is adequately and carefully nailed. Bridging has been eliminated. Nobody bridges anything anymore, ever. I haven't seen any bridging. I can't tell you how long I've seen bridging. And you used to see it. If you rip up old stuff, you'll see bridging. And that's the way they used to do it. Herringbone bridging or cross bridging. I don't see an example of it. The reason why I don't see an example of it because nobody does it anymore. Banjo, it's just all about openings and how to do openings. And I want to get into a little bit of the online book.
So bridging wasn't a temporary thing, it was something that they would.
Not temporary.
It would be permanent.
Permanent, yeah.
Oh, interesting, okay.
Yeah, not temporary. It's not like you're thinking not a bridge to something.
Right, yeah, or I think it said the hold the pieces together, so I was thinking it's more temporary.
Yeah, no, and this is where you can use a carpenter square to lay out bridging, but again, I'm not gonna. See, now there's bridging right there that you can buy and just nail on. And you'll see that a lot in cantilevers of joists. Basement level, if the run of joist is parallel to the supporting wall, extend the cantilever joist inward 2 or 3 times the length of the overhang. So that's typical of cantilevering anything 2 to 3 times, 2 times minimum, 2 times the cantilever, right? So for instance, you're going to cantilever out a 2x6 joist 3 feet past its foundation wall. So the building's going to cantilever out 3 feet, right? So how far back do you need to go that cantilever? You need to go 2 times the cantilever. So 6 feet back to lap onto that joist, right? 6 feet back. So you have to take a joist out to the sill, and then you can cantilever the joist by going 6 feet back and nailing it, and you can cantilever out 3 feet. And then there'll be something showing you a cantilever. We'll get a drawing to show that. Oh, this is a really good idea too. Bathrooms must support unusually heavy loads. Heavy fixtures like bathtubs and often the additional weight of a tile floor. The fixed dead load imposed by a tile floor averages around 30 pounds a square. The load from bathroom fixtures adds 10 to 20 per square for a total of 40 to 50 pounds of dead load. In addition, it's frequently necessary to cut joists to bring in water service and waste drains. So therefore, take special precautions in framing bathroom floors to supply adequate support. Now, what you might consider in doing a bathroom floor is either doubling up, right? Or spacing them closer together. I would just do 12-inch centers. 12-inch centers should do it, should support anything that you want to put on. In this case, they've doubled all the joists. But they also say space closer together, more support required. But you can see, you know, by the time you get all that float and tile on there, and let's say it's a soaker tub, and you have a tub that's, see, what are tubs? You know, some of these big soaker tubs are like 50-gallon tubs. Yeah, 50, 60-gallon tubs. How much is 60 gallons of water weigh? 480 pounds. That's a quarter of a ton. Water weighs 8 pounds a gallon. Okay, so cutting openings and so cutting holes in eye joists. So it'll tell you. They'll all tell you where you can put holes in these eye joists, how far from the end, how big a hole. And if you need to cut bigger, just ask the engineer. And usually on a set of plans, if you pull out those plans that I have for Mangone, you're going to see so much boilerplate, and you're going to find eye joists, and it's going to tell you. You can put an X amount of hole this close, and in the field you can do this and you can do that. And if you want to do more, just call the engineer and say, hey, I want to do that to that. And he'll tell you yes or no. And he'll say, okay, you can do it, but do this. All the time. I do that. I do that all the time.
Have you seen those sitting soaker tubs?
What about them?
Have you seen them?
No.
Like the Japanese sitting.
Yeah,
soaker tubs?
I have.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Yeah, they're very cool.
Patrick's installing one in that.
Oh, that's that bathroom?
Yeah, that Japanese one.
That's the bathroom.
Yeah.
So open web floor trusses. So there they are. So you can buy an open web floor truss, and the webbing is done with metal. You can have them engineered and built to your spec. They're way stronger than floor joists, and the video I'm going to show you, the floor, that's how this floor is done, is with truss joists. OSB, popular choice for subflooring because it doesn't delaminate, but when it's subject to moisture, but it does absorb moisture, causes the edges to swell. It's cheap stuff, but it does the job. You cover it up. You're going to cover it up anyway. What about 500 days? One manufactured panel guarantees them against water damage for 500 days, which is more than enough time to enclose the building. Okay. So the long edges should be running perpendicular to the joists, right? The long edges. So the 8-foot edge is nailed. We're in the same way the joists are. Yeah. They're self-spacing. Yeah, so a lot of your flooring, like a sturdy floor or struck floor, is a plywood floor. It's probably the most popular floors. Struck floor which is short for structural floor or sturdy floor, STURDI. It spells sturdy floor, because they're T&G. So a 3/4 T&G sturdy floor nailed down with ring shank nails and construction adhesive is going to give you a really good floor. It'll really tie that whole floor membrane together. Yeah, Dave?
How do you mark off where the nails or screws go?
Snap lines usually. Yeah. Usually snap lines, or you got a, you've got a 4-foot straight edge or something like that, or level. Just give yourself a couple of marks. But typically, give yourself some marks. And subfloors are covered. You're never going to see a subfloor. They're covered. You're not going to see one on purpose. They're going to be covered up with something. They're not going to be your finished floor. Then they give you, and you want to space these guys. Unless they're T&G, you don't space them. You take them to where they go. Otherwise, you do need to space them because they expand, and you don't want to be dead tight and have them expand and buckle. So stiffness increase when panels are glued, squeak free, eliminates nail popping. These are 1/8 inch screeds to squeeze out. 1/8 inch plywood. Plywood was once considered the best product for subflooring. It's been replaced by OSB, but not everywhere. I can tell you that right now. There's some nailing tips. There's a guy putting on construction adhesive on the joists. Here's that's a power screw gun. It just wham from standing up. That's a great way to put down floors. Using a maul to beat that guy over, a piece of wood to protect your T&G. Typically, if we got T&G, right, let's say the groove is in over there, and you want to beat on the tongue, we have a ripper of a piece that has the groove on it to slip over the tongue to protect it, and beat on that. So you're not beating on the tongue and mashing it up, so your neck sheet can't go into the tongue. Its groove can't go into the tongue. Wow, we're getting right into estimating materials. So estimate the floor joist. Okay, so what did I tell you? If it's 16 centers, multiply by 34, then add 1. If it's 24 centers, multiply by 0.5 or half, and add 1 as well. I didn't know that because we rarely do 24-inch centers joists. The number of joists equals length of wall times 3/4 plus 1 plus any extras, right? If you've got any holes or any additional double joists, you count where you're going to have doublers or things like that. So your estimate is going to include the joist, the full length, and any blocking, and band joists. There's a complete estimate for joists and joist headers and solid look for blocking and band joists. When using sheet materials, there's practically no waste. The net area is divided by 32, rounded out to the next whole number. Rounded out to the next whole number. Okay. So 3 types of framing. Let's go into let's see. Where do I want to go? I forget where I am. Okay. We're on 10, right? Ah, crap. Okay, so when we come back, I'm going to show you a few little video things, and I'm going to show you some of the videos I got. I mean, we're supposed to go till 10, but believe me, you guys want to stay till 10? Who said they want to stay till 10? Claire, was that you?
Sure.
I didn't think so. Sure, she says. Sure, she says. Okay, we'll look at some flashcards, but let's take a break. I have 8 straight up. Let's break until 8:10, and then we'll see if we can't cover some things, do a little fun stuff, and then say goodbye. Okay, come back at 10 after, you guys. Everybody back at 10 after. Up to here. Turn off this, turn on the lights. Thank you very much. And Zach, remind me to start recording, will you? After I, okay, we're recording, gang.
Class, like, on,
You do it here.
okay.
Yeah. I think you can do it online.
We're recording and we're back at it.
Okay, I'm done.
Jim's still going oh, you go to home that way anyway, right? You don't go-
I think 101's still closed.
Yeah.
Don't go home that way.
No,
It'd be a long way home.
unless I wanna turn my car into an oven.
Drag. Oh,
I hate driving on 54 at night.
You live from Sullivan, don't you?
I live in Sullivan, yeah. You know, so they call it the Alisal fire, and I live right off Alisal.
Yeah, I know. I saw that one.
Yeah. But I just missed the freeway getting closed when I went home yesterday. I mean, I got through and they closed it right after. But when I got to my house, from my house, I can see right at the top of the mountain there, where the Reagan's Ranch is. I can see all the antennas where he used to have it. That's where the fire started.
Yeah.
So I could see the smoke just billowing there when I got home, and it was crazy. And we were just, when I got home, I'm just looking for which way the wind's blowing, because I'm just hoping it's not gonna blow it right down the hill to Sullivan. But it was blowing it the other way. It was blowing it back towards the other way, so. It felt pretty sad. Yeah, it continued to move that way, but it was scary there. Seeing big puffy clouds coming up, and they couldn't fly. We had gusts up to 70 miles an hour last night. So it was like tornado speed winds, and they couldn't get air tankers. They couldn't get helicopter drops or anything yesterday.
That was like the peak of the wind last night, though.
I think it's supposed to die off tonight,
Yeah.
and then the firefighters will be able to get in there. So
I didn't hear any tankers today. I don't know if they were flying today.
it was still windy today, so I don't know. But they're coming out of Santa Maria today. No, so you might not even hear them here.
Yeah, true. That's right. Might not.
Yeah,
Forget the DC-10 in there, man.
yeah, they're set up at Santa Maria now, not here.
Okay,
They got
man.
the contract.
I'll let you
Here
get
we
back
go.
to it.
See you later, Jim. Drive safe.
See
Be
you guys
careful
tomorrow.
out there.
Tomorrow.
Be careful. Okay? Everybody be careful. I'm gonna remove the pin. I'm gonna go back to the gallery. Okay, so you are please going to hit some lights for me.
You got the recording done?
I do. Thank you very much for reminding me. Okay. Balloon framing. Who wants to answer? What's balloon framing? Frame all the way up. Type of building construction with upright studs extends from the foundation sill to the rafter plate, not used in new construction. Bullshit. All right, next. Band joist. Who knows what that is? Isn't it that rim joist runs all the way around? That's the edge of the joist floor, the joisted floor system. Perpendicular to the floor joist, which ends of the floor joist are attached, also called the joist header or the rim joist. Locking. That's solid bridging lumber placed between joists to distribute the floor load. Also solid pieces fastened between studs in a wall. Just skip that. Cantilever. Extending horizontally beyond the supporting surface. So if something's cantilevered, it was over supporting wall, beam, girder, and then it's supported by nothing, but it's anchoring well back in. cord. Let's see what this is. Should be the top or bottom member of a floor or roof truss, also called a flange. The crown. Okay, so crown is something that we didn't discuss, but crown is a slight warping called a crook. And then a deflection is a bending downward at the center of a joist. So I have to show you guys, and you guys can all see, but joists and studs are crowned up. Typically they're crowned up. So if you sight down a joist and it has any kind of a crown, you put that up. That goes up. Crown's always up because it compresses down, right? You don't want it down. So I'm putting the crown up, but weight compresses it down. Crown up. Girder. Principal beam to support other beams or ends of the joist, also called a beam. Hanger hangs the joist, right? Connecting hardware attaches to beam ends to other framing members. Header. Horizontal member that supports the load over an opening, such as a window or a door. It's a floor framing member that supports the weight around floor openings. So typically, mostly when we talk about headers, we talk about window headers and door headers that support the openings when we cut out the studs. I joist. That's a truss joist, not a truss joist. It's an I-beam joist. Flanges called cords. Structural composite lumber and a vertical web of OSB, 3/8 or 7/16 thick. A joist. Horizontal member of the floor frame, also horizontal member of the ceiling frame. Ledger. Strip attached to vertical framing or structural member to support joists or other horizontal framing, similar to a ribbon. Mudsill. Part that rests on the foundation wall to prevent settling. Weird. Like that. That would prevent settling in the wall. Platform framing or western framing. The floor joists of each story rest on the top plates of the story below. The bearing walls and partitions rest on the subfloor of each story, also called western framing. A post anchor supports the bottom of a post above the floor, protecting the wood from dampness. Post and beam framing. It's a method in which loads are carried by a framework of posts connected with beams, eliminating the need for load-bearing walls. Ribbon. Narrow board led into a stud or other vertical member used to support for joists or other horizontal members. Rough flooring. The subfloor. Sill. Sill plate, sill seal, solid bridging, span. Distance between structural supports for a horizontal member. Steel post is pretty self-explanatory. Stirrup. A hanger made of metal that supports joists. Subflooring, we know what that is. The tail joist. That's a short joist spanning from the band joist to the header of a floor opening. Trimmer would be the beam or floor joist a header is framed into, adds strength to the side of the opening. Underpinning. A short wall section between the foundation sill and the first floor framing, also called cripple wall. The web is that part in between the flanges and beams, wide flange. Framing, we know what that is too. Thank you. Now we're going to look at one other thing here. We're going to look at installing joists for right now. Here we go.
Install the rim joists. Measure and cut them to length. Then toe-nail the rim joist to the sill plate and nail the ends of the rim joist together. Mark the location of the floor joists on the rim joist using a square. Draw an X to indicate the position of each joist. Add the position for any double joists and trimmer joists that will be required along openings. Where regular joists will become tail joists, change the X to a T. Cite down dimension lumber for the floor joists to find the crown. The crown is the edge of the lumber that curves up in the middle. Install dimension lumber with the crown up. This will prevent the floor from sagging from its load. To aid in lifting or positioning long joists on the sill and girder, slide them along the top of another joist. Make sure no one is working below you.
See that mid-span wall?
Lay
there?
each one down flat next to the joist layout marks. Two carpenters normally work together on each end to install floor joists efficiently. Swing the joist upward. Then hold the joist end tightly against the rim joist and along the layout lines so the sides will be plumb. Nail the top of the joists to the rim joist. Then align and nail the bottom before nailing in the center. Align the other end of the floor joist with your layout lines and toenail it to the sill. Repeat this procedure on other floor joists. Install the rim joists. Measure and cut them to length. Then toenail the rim joist to the sill plate and nail the edge.
Okay, let's go. To
Gardner, well, John Gordon and Joe are friends of mine. Trevor Baumgartner, he took one of my class, we had 4-story, the gardens on Hope.
Yep.
Next to the, and those guys, he had every wall built in it. Been for Rich 12, when did you start? All right, when you,
Yeah,
it's just-
because in, Rich myself are
we're talking about hard to make money without using framing contractors, because all my guys that work for me,
before it ever
like
even
the
got
frame.
drawn? I mean, at what point did the owners know they were gonna use Rich?
That's an interesting one here, because we actually were working concurrent.
So that's all probably exterior sheeting right there. It looks like this is some joist stuff. I don't know. This is right on the beach? Right on the beach.
All shed roofs?
No, we've got a bunch of flat roofs that have already been. And then the site here is really tight, so we're not able to get our grade all around the building.
Yeah.
So we're having to build all of our decks, put temp seating down, and then coming back and building those taller rake roofs.
So you can get your cradle up there, or just so you can lift from
Just so we
the
can
deck?
get material, slide in, set up scaffolding in the back, and have just a safer work environment.
And Gene lifts on the site?
Yes,
Is your Gene lift?
yep. And there's just a lot of big lumber.
Guys know what a genie lift is? Anybody out there in Zoom land? Know what a genie lift is? Okay, I'm gonna explain a genie lift. You guys can see, you guys can't see, but picture if you can, small wheels, tall dolly with a piece that moves up and down, and forks. And it's cranked by hand. So basically you can slide under a beam, crank it. One guy can crank it. Some of them crank like this, and it's got I think it's cable and gears. right? Some of them are chain drive, and you just mechanically, the mechanical advantage is huge, but you can lift very high beams, very heavy beams up in the air. Genie lifts. See if we can see one here, but you can see the size of the beams and stuff that are being cut here. They're framing on top.
Yeah, the deck framing is all 2x12 joints with 8x14, 6 8x14, 8x14.
This deck is the deck we're talking about, right? So these are 6x14
Yeah.
main supports and all stainless.
All stainless hardware.
Even the pads,
Yeah.
it's solid, what, 5/8 stainless, 1/2 inch stainless, 3/4 stainless, holy God.
Then we'll get that back, yeah, our concrete stuff back out here. To dry back it all.
Yeah, and this all gets dried back, which is just a mortar without water, pretty much, but enough water to make it, so you can shove it in there. And then I noticed this, actually.
So blocking.
Is it you or the Matt? Somebody was telling me about this, what you're using for waterproofing.
Waterproofing is made by Delta, and it's just a great product.
And all those hangers are stainless. Every hanger. They're not galvanized steel, they're stainless, so. It's better.
This is one that you sell. So we want to sell. One of the big problems we always come to is ledgers always rot out when it's pressed up against the building. And so we use the waffle Trek decking.
Really a good
to
idea.
space it off
Stand it off.
and allow it to breathe. And then we got a 6-inch STS screw topped in.
Wow.
And we do on decks like this, wrap bitchethane around the top of the joist, really goes down, and then, because you know,
But
it's out
that's the
underneath.
other, the two space spots that always
Yeah.
rot out are gonna be your ledger and then your joist from the screw penetrations coming straight down.
Yep.
And we use, if you use the Gracie Bicor, it's actually specifically made and it's all black. So you can look down and
Self-sealing.
see white. And it's made for deck tape.
Huh.
It's awesome.
2x12 blocking, and this is,
Yeah, one
Is it-
foot on center.
and is it 4/4 net you pay? Or is it,
Bicor.
so it's 5/4 you pay, which is 4/4 net, so it's
Yeah.
1 inch thick. And then I was pretty impressed with the marine ply and stainless steel cup washers and screws.
Okay, so you
This is
see
gonna
those
skim the
truss
line.
joists?
And then we actually.
That whole floor system is a truss joist floor system.
Yeah, full fill.
Engineered and
Full filled with
made for them.
icing.
Oh, yeah, figured that much. And these are all, factory built trusses
So,
for the floor throughout.
yeah, so all the floors where there's living or conditioned space above, that's all floor joists. That's all those floor truss joists. So they're super strong, no squeaking, really solid. And then all those 2x12s you saw out there, that's all deck framing. So that's all exterior, and they're all pressure treated. They're all that sunwood pressure treated.
Pretty much, right, the living areas,
Yeah.
and then the decks.
How much are they sinking into this build? Because this is all like top of the line components.
Say again now?
How much are they sinking into the build?
Are
This
these guys
all-
stainless as well?
Stainless and stainless steel.
7 million.
Because somebody was going to.
There's 70 columns.
The new requirements, all galvanized everywhere. I said, well, yeah, you use stainless too, right? Well, yeah, but you don't usually envision stainless, but now, so here, it's not just.
Exactly, and that's the scary part, is you get that galvanized touching copper in here.
Oh, dissimilar metals is unbelievable. I mean, the kind of stuff that can happen, dissimilar metals. Jesus, what is it, 440 here?
You know, 400 amps.
Yeah, 400 amp, I meant that.
And then all of our plumbing will come up and we'll strap it to a column on each location.
And then do those get boxed or they just stay open?
They'll stay up and, we got a skirt wall that runs around the whole perimeter of the building, so it'll have a bug screen and then,
That's a breakaway wall?
yeah.
Is it anchored to anything? I mean, is it on a footing?
So you know what so because of where it's built, and because the proximity of the ocean is such that a really, a big surge, a big tidal surge, could wash right up against the house, right under the house. The house is built fairly high. The house is built like 8 or 9 feet high. but all those perimeter walls that are gonna be the skirt walls that enclose this foundation are breakaway walls. They're made so that if the tidal surge hits those things, they break away. And it lets the water just run right underneath right underneath it. Because the house is sitting on concrete foundations, 60 some odd of them, or 70 some odd of them, that are down well into bedrock. It's a lot of concrete, so it's an unbelievable structure.
It's on a stem wall, and that breakaway wall, they just have certain nailing requirements for the top and side and bottom damage. They go back to old school shop pins.
Fire in the hole.
Yep, you don't see them very often there anymore.
No, but they're designed, the walls they're gonna build to fill all this in is designed to, if they get a big surge or a tsunami or a king tide, they'll bust away these walls and water will just go whooshing in and it won't.
Right through in the building.
Building will just be sitting on at 68, 2 foot.
Yeah, 74 feet.
74 cases.
Yeah, let's see some framing.
Yeah, and at the Cabonia, they just rolled all the braces, so that's probably our best spot.
And obviously a temporary construction stair. And I'm supposed to break out some acorns for you guys for lab and show you how to do a total rise, full run, unit rise, and we'll lay out some stringers, just like this. What do you say? Okay, sounds good.
You're not bad for steps there.
Not bad, man. And internet flooring, whatever, yeah. That was the first thing I bought a building in 1988.
Yeah.
The first thing I did was I built my company, and make it up to magazine, and then I the chance to run me and. That's just about as nice as that.
These guys, our guys do a good job.
Yeah, it really a clean job. I love laying out stairs. It's fun.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, when I was working as a carpenter, I got into staircases and then just on a fluke, I got into curved staircases and curved handrails. You know, and once you understand them, it's not rocket science.
Yeah.
And really, true radius. But how do we get up there? Can we get up there?
Yeah.
So,
So let's back up a second, actually. Come on, God, I just backed you up. What the heck? That's all I did. How hard can that be?
Weren't those IT guys saying it was super fast in here?
Yeah. That
You
we're
guys
saying.
say a lot of
staircase up will be over here. We're on top of the garage. Holy smokes. Column,
Okay, look at that.
steel column.
So there's your steel columns supporting steel I-beams and wrapped. And in a job like this, that's where you really use the steel. This is, and again, you're not going to be the one. I guarantee you, you're not going to be the one going, should we use a steel column here? You're just going to read the plans, or somebody's going to read the plans, and they're going to have that steel column. Somebody above my pay grade is going to choose what goes where.
Come on, that's probably is that a roof frame? An in-wall roof frame again? Yeah, here we go. Big frame, not bad for on top of the garage. Holy smokes.
Top of the garage. And that's looking away from the ocean.
Is this the staircase up will be over here? No. Okay. This is just a deck to sit out and enjoy the marsh and the wetlands.
Yeah,
So what kind of glass are these two openings? Or are these?
That was in Carpenter, yeah.
Say again, please. Carpet, yeah, Sandy Lane. Sandy Lane Cove.
Spot deck, and then have a little chamfer system with it.
Are you tapering to a center drain? Is that what you're doing?
Yep. It's the-
And that's in the framing.
Yep.
I was going, yeah, some of these.
Last year, last summer. Yeah, so just over a year ago. Yeah, I don't know where it is now. It's probably not completely finished. Probably close to being finished.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise, you gotta bring this part down, and then you got that much flow, right?
Well, you either have to pre-float it, or, you know, a lot of guys do the taper rip.
Yeah.
And then put another layer.
So they carved out the LVL joists to make this drain. It's really pretty cool.
So they've got to come in and block every 2 feet.
Vertical sliding.
So it's just, you know, it makes it a lot more cumbersome for them. But, you know, you can see they're so good and efficient, and they'll.
Yeah, so vertical siding, right? I don't know what the siding is on it. It's probably some kind of a T&G. I don't know the size of it. There's 1x5, 1x6, 1x4, whatever, but you can't run vertical siding without blocking. Right? Horizontal siding, your studs are all the nailing you're ever going to need. But if you're going to run your siding vertically, you need nailing, and you only have nailing every 16 inches. So you need blocking. And it looks like they did blocking on, looks like 2 foot, which would probably make sense. And again, you're not going to have to choose that either.
They don't actually even.
They're gonna
mark
tell you.
Their studs or their blocks when they're cutting them. They just bump it and plunge it. Bump and plunge, and the blocks just fall right into the wall just by siding it.
Wow.
They don't even pull out a tape or a speedy square.
Good. So it's without happening.
But it's so amazing to watch. You just watch them pump up, and then they set them down, and they know, like, as they're sliding it back up, that one's a little long, they'll knock an 1/8 or 16th off of it, so they don't balloon out the wall when they, you know, when they block it. It's awesome.
So you've got fire blocks, this is taller than 10 feet. You got two, at least one run of fire blocks, and then these 4x blocks, which are called out for some reason, right? Wait, it's not.
4x blocks, so, yeah. 'cause
They're
this is
3x
a shear
blocks,
wall.
I guess, right?
Yeah,
Because it's a shear wall.
shear wall.
These two are shear walls.
Yep.
So that's what kind of tell. And then otherwise,
And you're not going to have to think about that either, because you're going to have engineered plans on the structural will tell you what your shear walls are, which walls are your shear walls, how many feet of wall is shear wall, and exactly what goes on that shear wall. The thickness of the plywood, the edge nailing, the field nailing, the blocking, plate, all that, all be on the structural plans.
you see what a huge hassle, if this were horizontal siding, you could nail on your studs. Yeah, because it's vertical siding, you got to block, and that gives you blocking, and that gives you nailing every 2 feet. So it's line nail, T&G.
Yeah, it's Termite.
What is it?
Termite is like an ash product,
Ooh,
and it's all pre-finished, and we just come.
T&G.
Double check. Some are, it's almost like a skip sheeting where a little bit you can see through, so it'll be like a face now.
Which better adhesion than face nails, especially when you're using stainless steel nails, right?
Yeah, everything's galvanized, you know, that's gonna get covered and enveloped within our building envelope, and then everything else is on the exterior stainless.
Stainless. And then your clips, these clips are stainless as well?
Those are not, because they'll be covered with.
Completely covered, yeah. And those clips basically just space the sheeting, so they're not butted tight, so they don't,
Yeah.
so they have
And
room to.
you don't need clips unless you're over a 2-foot span or over a 16-inch bed.
Okay, so they didn't even have to be there, they're just there, right?
I think they're just, they customarily put them in.
Yeah, and the clips also keep your
Sheathing
roof aligned, yeah.
Those clips are kind of cool. They keep your roof aligned, and they also keep it so if you step on that roof between a 16-foot span, you know that you've got 2 pieces of plywood there. You won't get a sag because it clips, hold them together. Clips mounted on one, and the other one slides into it.
Really, those are nailers up there, that 2x4. nails.
That's that 2x4 right there.
Will this all I see, will they put that?
That 2x4, that 2x4, right,
Those are nailers up there, that 2x4.
right there. There's only one reason that's there. Why? To receive the drywall. That's all it's for. There's no other reason for it. That is a nailer specific, has no structural value whatsoever. It just allows when the drywall comes over this LVL micro lam and goes to there, it's got nailing.
See the drywall lid. Will this all icing? Will they
Yes.
put that to the
Ice
lid?
name. Ice name.
Open cell foam the whole place.
Pretty much, except for the walls.
So will also be unfaced bats.
Yeah. And we like to use, the rock wool.
Rock
It's a mineral wall.
Yeah.
And then it's fire resistant, it's
Yeah.
10 times better than sound dampening. so you
10
don't have to
times.
make sound
Easy.
issues.
How does it compare price wise?
It falls in between icing and your,
And-
wool
and
fiber
unfaced
bats.
bats?
Yeah,
Huh. Check that out. You know, unfaced bats, like that job of mine,
yeah.
an extra $475 insulates the interior walls. Why wouldn't you spend $475 for at least the sound value
Yeah.
of that?
Yeah, I think-
Wall.
Probably that's more for the, rock wool, but it's mold resistant. I mean, it's way far superior product.
Yeah, because really, how many walls have you opened up with insulation that's just goes away? It's wet, stays wet, mold disappears, rats seem to like to eat the paper. But this is just clean, ready. Now, this place is platform frame, or balloon frame. You don't have any gable-end walls, which I told you guys last week. I like to see gable-end walls, balloon frame. That's the only balloon frame that we do anymore. But this would have been, this job would have been balloon framed 40 years ago.
Yeah.
These walls would have been full height, and that ledger would have been let in for this floor.
Exactly.
We can stop doing this. This is a way more efficient way to do it. 8-foot studs versus 16 or 20.
15, and then back then it was all 2x4 too. So
Yeah.
at least your structural integrity.
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, not to mention straight and flat and all those other great things. And then let me ask you this, because I'm gonna do a little demo.
Yeah.
How many, are the framers framing with pneumatic guns? Is anybody framing with cordless guns?
We're still on the back here, Dave. We've got a couple, cordless, but there's just, especially when you see the sheeters go, there's no way the cordless.
Could keep up. Have you tried one?
Yeah, I think we've got a couple on site. They work all right. They're just not the same. I don't know. Yeah, there's the skill saws.
For the cordless?
Cordless skill saws, the Makita double battery is.
That's weird. I have a cordless router, which is
so nice.
beyond belief, but I'm gonna do a demo.
Go get them. I think so.
Compressors and hoses and like.
But yeah, the only time we actually get hand bang stuff is when if you have a 3-mag sill plate.
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
They'll use 20 in hand bang.
Yeah, and there's no guns gonna take those.
No.
20 penny nails to nail your 3x plate.
By hand,
From the bottom of your 3x plate into your stud.
20 penny
Yeah,
nails.
so we didn't toenail anything on this.
Yeah.
You'll like, if you go up.
But you can toenail studs into the 3x plate, right?
Yeah, you can. I think it's a better
Yeah,
connection. You imagine a 20
Yeah.
going straight up, or you've got 6
It's a way better.
toenailing it.
It's a way better connection. And so this is 16 centers. Built.
So what he's talking about is when you nail through the bottom plate into the bottom of your studs, you're nailing your wall flat before you stand it. So you're able to nail through the plate 1.5 inches, right? Into the bottom of the stud with a 3 1/4 or a 16 penny nail, 3.5 inch nail, 3 1/4 if they're gun nails. But if you've got a 3x plate, that's a 2.5 inch thick plate. So that 1 inch of penetration, even 3/4 if it's a 3 1/4 nail, that's not enough penetration in the bottom of the stud. You have to have more penetration than that. So you have to use a 20 penny nail. You have to use a 4-inch nail, 4-inch plus nails. I think it might be 4 1/4. And there's no gun that drives a 20 penny nail. So all that 3x stud, 3x plates, and a lot of shear walls have 3x plates, have to be hand nailed. So we still need those big death stick hammers.
Double studs, is that for, there's no HDs up here, all the HDs would be done with framing, right?
MSD strap up here.
Okay.
And we've got a couple places, we landed our walls on joists. So we'll actually drill through and HD through the beam
Okay.
for our connection.
So these doubles are for maybe for some,
And we do throughout the just standard training, yeah, we use
for any plywood break, you use double, you double up.
double up any plywood brick.
Wow.
So,
Just standard practice.
Wow.
And stagger your sheets.
yeah, I see that too. I mean, certainly. Yeah, which is crazy. I mean, it's, you can see it on a roof, it's easy, but really it makes sense on walls too.
It really did, well, and I think, so you'll see like, we'll have 3x6 high and low for our stagger.
Yeah.
And so I think that line up there is gonna be, that's a strap line. Because, our sheet breaks will stagger. And the only thing,
So they're not breaking their wall sheeting.
and then you've got a full finished interior.
They're not breaking their wall sheeting halfway on a stud. They're doubling up the stud. So they're not being very economical about the material. They're just like, they're throwing material at this job. So whenever they have an edge of a piece of sheeting, they put a whole stud and then they put a stud right next to it to catch the edge of the next sheet. Like right there. Wow.
As well.
And so.
That's a lot of studs if you think about all the walls.
From the architect or just the way you guys like to do windows?
The architect called out a jam extension, but we could have just done a buffer, a block, and waterproof to that.
Right.
But we figured for efficiency's sake, instead of setting two things, is might as well just set the jam and pull the window to it.
Yeah.
And then the window will have the data for the drywall for tiling.
Wow.
My house is 1930. All for 48.
Yeah, we don't believe. Fire sprinklers. So when they frame the roof, we don't have to head out a single rafter.
So now we're all the way in the front. The ocean's right behind him.
But we won't have to head.
Okay, so I got, this is really important. This is good. Could you please explain that one more time?
So before we stud walls, if we go out and detail out after they finish the floor framing, or we just had a concrete foundation, as we detail out every single door opening, mark the opening, finished opening, rough opening,
So you're snapping out the interior walls or just and openings in them?
every interior wall,
Okay.
every door opening, and then we fall back, and as they're starting to get their wall packages together, we come back and snap every single thing that's gonna affect the roof framing, while it's a nice clean slate, before you have all these braces and you can't pull big long string lines. So every single can light, every single up light, you'll see speakers, back fans, everything that's gonna be up in our framing, as we snap it out so we miss it.
So cool, man. That's really planning. That's really planning. That's not just framing. And then having your plumbers, we're talking especially electricians, having electricians come in and figure out the lighting, how best to space the lighting, right? They figure all that out beforehand and adjust the framing for it. These guys are really very impressive, I gotta tell you.
As we're roof
So you
framing.
can just take that up with a laser. And also, do you do all your interior walls by non-doublers and your joists? You lay that out and you lay out the floor and lay out the floor?
As far as down below.
Yeah. A lot of guys like to put their walls on doublers, or at least on a joist.
This one, it was a little different because they're floor trusses.
Right, right.
So most of our major walls
Yeah,
land on, large beams.
Yeah.
So we either run perpendicular of the floor joist or try and land one right
But
underneath.
the whole thing is anticipating.
Yep.
The next step. And the next step, and maybe 3 or 4 steps beyond, right?
Exactly. So when you're.
So that when the HVAC guy's going, where do I run this duct? You're not going, oh, shit, I guess we should have thought of that before we.
Or when the plumber, comes to, drill the toilet, is make sure there's not a joist underneath there, because you can't modify a joist, you can't head that out, or a truss.
No.
Yeah.
No.
You can head out a
No.
joist, but you
Yeah.
can't head out.
So I can't tell you how many times on a raised floor, it's like, oh God, it totally goes through. There's a joist, so we have to head the joist off. You can't head out a truss. You can, it's very complex, and these trusses, they're engineered to do a certain thing, and you can't cut them out and head them off like you can regular stock.
Right, so the truss, the floor layout, we had to think through all of our plumbing, all of our mechanical. So it's that forward thinking that I think, it just comes with experience, but it becomes invaluable.
And you're the guy.
Yeah,
Your job,
I get to
right?
manage all that.
Yeah, and get with whoever's the layout guy and the camera guy and go, okay,
Well,
or is it just you?
I'm the layout guy.
Hmm.
We have the framing guy, so
Yeah.
I have someone else who, to hold the tape or.
But ultimately, you're not leaving the layout to the frame.
No. I mean, they help tremendously. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Billy and his boys are.
So you see all those 2x, all these guys? Those are used to brace the walls to plumb and line because they haven't run the ceiling joists yet. So the walls are just standing. The ceiling joists haven't tied them all together. So when they run plumb and line, and I won't tell you about plumb and line yet, Jim will or I will at some point when we talk about wall framing. But when the walls are plumbed and straight lined, then these braces are nailed to the floor, towed to the floor, or towed to blocks in the floor, nailed to blocks in the floor, and then they're nailed to the top plates to keep them plumbed in line before they start rolling joists.
That's all they do is bang out framing.
Yep. Yeah, well, they're amazing.
And we used to have, a job site, giant radial arm saws way back when.
Yep.
So do you think a platform framer,
Billy and his boys are, that's all they do is bang out framing.
Yep. Yeah, well, they're amazing.
might have, see, that's a balloon framed wall, what there is of it, that big rake wall. And you can see how it'd be stupid to platform frame that. So that's for the guy to say that we don't use balloon framing in new construction is just dumb. Not to mention the fact that my answer key had some wrong answers on it today when I was doing the test for Thursday. So Goodhart Wilcox, we gotta talk about this.
And we used to have, a job site, giant radial arm saws way back when.
Yep.
That's the ocean,
Now chop saws.
the beach.
Framing. So what do you, I guess you could set that with James the diesel.
Yeah, this one, we built scaffolding to slide it out. And we have transport all these. We don't have.
It's the hot tub, it's going over here on the left. Over there. Hot tub deck. These decks would be so much fun. Can you imagine this place? It's just unbelievable.
That's your rain collection tank.
That's a rainwater collection tank.
Is this on top?
To the
City sewer?
city sewer, so we had to set sewer junction pump.
Yeah.
In the street.
Okay, because Matt thought this was,
You haven't got to that yet in plumbing, right? But remember what I told you about plumbing? The 4 things?
Shit rolls down.
Yeah, the most important is the shit rolls downhill a quarter inch to a foot. If you don't have a quarter inch to a foot for your excrement to roll down, what are you gonna do? You're gonna do an ejector pump. So you're gonna roll downhill with gravity to a holding tank with an ejector pump in it. And so that when that level has a float switch, when the effluent gets up to the point where it triggers the pump, then it pumps it, it has a head and lift, it pumps it out to the street and pumps it up because nothing flows uphill. So it pumps it up and then up to a point where it can flow down into city sewer. But you look at some of these places on the Riviera, you look at, you know that the sewer's up on APS and the houses are down below the street. How do they get their waste? So because they don't go down to somebody else's house to their sewer, they have ejector pumps and they pump up.
so, was,
That's rainwater. That's that new requirement that they're making you collect rainwater.
Wow.
Yeah, he thought that was septic, and I thought, no, man, they wouldn't let you have septic right here. There's no way, man. Wait, so you have an ejector pump, so what happens because shit rolls downhill a quarter of a foot. You don't have that kind of fall.
We're at elevation, we're 8 feet above sea level. So high tide, you're only 2 feet above.
Yeah,
Wow.
so it's the sewage is goes to a collection vault, or whatever you call it. Has a float switch and it comes out and pumps the effluent.
I didn't have to explain that, did I?
Yeah, so it's got a macerator too, right? Macerator, so it chews it up.
Choose it up, that's good. I'd like to have that job.
What do you do for Lane? Oh, Cooper?
Seasoned vet.
Dude, veterinarian too, I love that. Oh, what's that, is there a deck cutting bolt or is that?
No, we got transom windows above all of this.
So this is a big rate, this is
Big, right?
big, and what are the, it's gonna be a volume seal, obviously, is it
Yep.
gonna be exposed beams? or
Drywall with a couple faux.
Box beams?
Yeah, that was it. At one point, it was a full box beam.
We made box beams for Peter's station. Check out that. We made a 2x12 heater, a U-shaped box, and they really look like they support.
We use box beams all the time. Usually Mark Mills the one that makes it for us.
Yeah.
Very good guy.
You can't go wrong with
I just met with Joe this morning, spent a bunch of time with him.
Tom and Joe. So when I started doing this work,
Yeah.
I worked with Ron, with his dad, right?
Okay, yeah.
So I would take stuff to be shaped for them, and I mean, they've just always kind of been my gurus. Cabinet and millwork gurus,
Yeah. Well,
and
yeah,
their
yeah.
shop is just unreal. Oh, I love the shop. I'm super jealous, but then the older I get, the less jealous I am of anybody. Right? So is this a pass-through? What is this?
This, another niche for the bathroom.
This is a big shower.
Big shower.
Oh, you got the right idea about features, right? And what are these?
This is
So
big.
these
Pads.
pads, we've got larger scale over here, but we've got our gutter detail, and it called for a solid block. But dimensionally, lumber-wise, we couldn't find anything that would work and be cost efficient. So we worked with the engineer to come up with basically like a truss detail essentially, and we into the mix, we'd have good proper nailing and nails that would punch through.
And that's your blocking.
That's our block.
Wow, I love it. And that's blocking for where? Oh, right there.
For this one, yeah, the gutter detail.
Oh, okay, so it's a recess. It's a block below the recess to carry that gutter.
That in there.
So you like true wood? You know, my dog does too. My wife thinks he's got pica, which is that thing that dog gets with will eat anything, but I don't think so. He just likes to chew.
Oh, he just, yeah, he's that. He's pulling out.
PGI 230s. Oh, it's really clean, man. So when are your framers back in force with the roof?
Once we finish this deck framing out here, then we're gonna get right back on the roof.
The framers are now out doing the deck.
Yep.
Yeah, this is like come here every day.
Right? It's, I mean, it's constantly just fun stuff coming on. And
Yeah, you
one
should.
thing, it's not by any means perfect, and, these guys are really experienced, really good framers. They had their layout stick, laid everything out, and they ended up being off by 3/4 of an inch. So, like, even the best framers
Yep.
can make simple mistakes. So checking those simple things. So we actually stacked the roof, so we had to come back in and cut out a top plate and add 3/4 plywood.
Oh. So their elevation was off 3/4.
Their elevation was off 3/4. And with all the height restrictions on the beach, we had to be tight.
Wow. But somebody saw it at some point before it was too late to fix.
Well, it played in and we had all our header heights figured out. And it matched up with our ceiling heights and they were off.
So your windows are just gonna, the ceilings are gonna plane into the windows,
Yep. Interior and
which is a really tough detail. So when you're talking about contemporary details, that's a contemporary detail.
Yep.
It's a bear to pull off. You have virtually no swap, right?
Especially with pocket doors.
Man.
Because the head's another 2 or 3 inches
Yeah.
taller.
Yeah.
So then
So
we're
you
actually,
gotta-
they just started, we're gonna knock out all these beams.
Oh, right here. That's what you're talking about.
Yep.
Is this the pocket wall here?
This is, yeah, pocket door.
Right there, that knocked out. I think I'm focused on it, yeah. And then we started doing it here. Yeah, there it is. Don't ever get old, Alex, just kill yourself.
No.
Yeah, so detail, they're just like never ending.
Yeah.
And they're not gonna stop. I mean, you're just kind of beginning in some ways. You know, well, not really beginning, you've been into it for a while, but
Oh, but just that forward thinking now is,
yeah.
you're thinking 3 steps and 5 steps ahead.
And in a job like this, if you don't,
Oh,
you should not be doing this job.
when we got a really aggressive schedule and an owner that really wants this done as soon as possible. So that's what we're fighting. We're fighting, we can't have those delays because we didn't think of something.
That's stress.
It's part of the fun. This makes you better at what you do.
Yeah, no, that's good. You're right. Because how do you get better if you're not challenged?
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Definitely this pushes you.
Yeah, I'll bet. So to date, Alex, for you,
Yeah.
is this your most complex job?
Probably the last project, we just finished one on Cordero. It was another, that one was actually a fast track job. And I didn't hear, hardly, told me when I was just starting out, is you can have, 3 ways. You can either have quality, you can either have speed, or you can have cost. And it's, pick 2.
Yeah.
So he wanted all 3, he dumped the cost and picked the other 2. So that job was really tough. I think it was a year and 6 months for, I think it was 9,000 square feet.
People spending money on a lot.
And have you seen these? They're DTZs. They like a fold down for the deck. These chairs? Yeah. They're just hanging. Are they installed? No. These guys are installed. I've never seen them before. Whoa.
Wow,
These are called out.
Yep.
that's cool.
Never seen these before. And they're stainless as well, I guess.
Huh.
Yep.
And they're deck hold down. So they're so they go through the ledger and into the rim joist.
Yep.
And they're Titans, is that what they are?
DTZs.
Okay.
With that 6-inch STS screen.
Wow. Brand new fastener. I love this detail.
Probably the standard, putting all this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
You think about it, this thing could get away.
That's the way of our life.
Yes, yeah, it's true. For the pocket.
Yep, and these guys do a really nice job where they don't overcut it.
Yeah, that's clean, man. So, in this, obviously, this LDL is engineered to lose 2.5 inches or whatever.
Oh, yeah, and it was in, structural details.
Yeah.
So that cutout right there, that's gonna get a header for a pocket wall.
We're going, well,
Can I do this?
yeah, it's okay to do.
And that's where, Rick beat it all really helped out.
Yeah, that's what I find too. It really helps out. The sooner you get the people that are actually gonna do it involved, the better.
Yeah, this is actually
Balloon frame wall, you hear him say that? Yeah, with a ledger. With a ledger and the joists are hung off it.
The walls are good. All the walls are good. Yeah. Once they're coming off the top. Are there, what you see, is everything else vaulted? Everything else is vaulted.
So there won't be any ceiling joists, there'll be rafters.
Yep.
Well, a couple of ceiling. That one nailer was for
And
a
then Is it pocket?
bathroom
Is
seating.
it Chase?
Yeah, there, yes, it changed, just a little bit of dead space. Steady. And with that clear story window above it. Yeah.
Up there. You are phenomenal. Your project is phenomenal.
These are, last couple are really short, like a couple minutes each. This is a minute and 18 seconds.
Put a piece of bitchy thing right here.
So that piece of plywood just hanging, this sheet of bituthane, because they're putting some deck members up against it. So rather than go wood to wood, they're gonna go wood to bituthane to wood. So,
Yeah, I glued my fingers together with some
Cyanoacrylate a couple months ago. Yeah, for this weird stainless wall. It's horrible, man.
yeah, don't ever do that.
yeah. Yeah, so
There's the deck for the hot tub.
it's not likely.
So the hot tub's gonna sit on this guy,
French
which
is
is
gonna rot out anytime soon.
overhead
And
pour,
it's gonna be
all steel,
not quite flush with the
So-
deck, a little bit proud.
It's 18 inches tall.
18 inches above the deck. So
Love that.
so cool. This is unbelievable. That was 4, 5. This one's only a minute.
Back on it for a minute. I want to show you a detail that is odd. You see, we have in these interior walls, there's some single top plate walls, which is interesting. Yeah, it's a single top plate wall. So that's a green wall with a single top plate. I don't necessarily like single top plate walls. Then throughout here, but see, these are double top plates, and the double top plates help tie a perpendicular wall. Wall it's tying to. But what I wanted to show you are these double bottom plates, which is a real anomaly. But it's a double bottom plate because they're going to lose probably 1.5 inches of floor for mortar, a lightweight concrete, and a warm floor. It's going to get a warm floor, and I'll tell you about warm floors at some point.
Get to warm floor. So they're gonna lose about 1.5 inches. They're gonna lay clear recipe tubing. We'll take hot water. And they're gonna pour lightweight concrete all over that. And then they're gonna do a finished floor on top of that. So the floor will be heated from, the house will be heated from the floor. And then lastly, this one's not even a minute, I don't think. I have these little small ones, 33
Okay,
seconds.
and they cut this out from underneath the entry cantilever for the deck, for the unit over the garage, and I wanted to show you.
You can see how they scooped out.
these LVLs, and they sheeted it with the scoop in it, so they'll put a drain in it in the center where it scoops to carry water, and then of course they'll plumb the water. You can see that pipe right over there. That's for roof water. All the drains are in the wall, and they'll daylight somewhere. I had this,
Okay, let's, lights, please. Hey, everybody awake? Ryan, Brandon, Adir, Zach, Michael, Connor, Matthew.
Right here.
Matthew, you made
Still awake?
it. I marked you here because you communicated me, so I didn't even bother to look because I knew you'd be here. So next week, we'll talk about the Saturday lab, and we'll go over the material list, and we'll do this shade structure and whatever else Jim wants me to talk about. be careful out there and be careful, wear your mask if this air gets really bad. Okay, see you guys. Good night, y'all.
Thank you, Rob.
See you all. See you next week and let me know. We'll talk and see who can make it for that, a week from Saturday left. Okay?
Good.